Hello and welcome to the GCSE Religious Studies Options video. The Religion and Worldviews department is really excited to share this brilliant GCSE option with you. At the heart of our existence are huge questions. Those huge questions are things like, why does the universe exist? Is there a purpose to the universe? Is there a God who created the universe? Is the universe here by pure random chance? If so, what does that mean for our purpose within it? What does that mean for how we are meant to act in the universe? If God does exist and God is all-loving or all-powerful, then how do we start to reconcile the existence of evil in our universe? Particularly when we look around the world, it's hardly like everybody's acting in these wonderful ways all of the time. So how do we start to reconcile the potential existence of God with an earth that doesn't really always show that there could or should be an all-loving God? If there is no God, then how do we begin to act within the world? How do we begin to engage with that? Is our job just purely to fight evil all the time? Are we meant to learn something from it? How does evil exist and how does that work with the existence of God? And does God exist or does God not exist? And I think this question then becomes even more fascinating when we take it further. So, 84% of the world's population adhere to a religious belief. That's over 3/4. And that statistic doesn't even take into consideration things like people who believe God exists. This is just people who adhere and practice a religious belief. And then when we start to look at this type of statistic, we start to think that actually these people's religious beliefs is going to influence the way they act. They're going to take their ethics and their morals from their religion, from maybe their religious texts or the rules that come about because of their religion. They're going to take how they act and engage in the world with things like the environment and other aspects of their existence are all going to be influenced and impacted by their religious belief. And in turn, that has a much greater influence on bigger things. So it influences how laws are made or how countries are governed or what that looks like. And so actually religious belief has a huge influence. And even when people say to me, oh, but in the Western world, secularization is increasing, that is true. However, a recent survey showed that over half or around half of the UK adult population say that they have prayed. That is quite a large statistic of people that have in some way tried to communicate with God. And what exactly does that look like? And how does that impact the way that the world is lived and run? So why study GCSE religious studies? Wow, I love this quote from Albert Einstein, where it says, the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. And GCSE religious studies is going to look at the mysterious in terms of how people encounter and engage with that. So it's going to look at things such as, does God exist? And how do religions practice their religion? So whether they perhaps have a sacred ceremony where they believe they encounter God in some way in this mysterious way. It's so fascinating to look and ask and discuss and debate these big questions. So to ask questions like, does God exist? And what does that look like? To ask questions of why people do certain things in religious practice, for example. And that's a really unique thing in GCSE religious studies compared to other subjects that we're able to discuss and ask and debate these big questions. It also allows us to understand diversity and culture a little bit more. So when we start to understand different religious beliefs or different religious perspectives, when we go out into the world and encounter different people, different religious people who believe in God or people who don't believe in God, we're then able to understand more and have more celebration of diversity. We're able to develop our critical thinking skills. So why do we agree with something? Why do we disagree with something? And how do we do that in the best possible way? How do we think critically about the world and think what we agree with, what we don't, how we could disagree, and how people could disagree with our opinions, for example? It allows us to refine our communication skills, so that's both our written communication skills, so our ability to write clearly, and also to be able to have discussion and debate that is effective. The other great thing about GCSE religious studies is it just complements lots of other subjects. It helps develop skills that are going to help you in other subjects, and so it works well with a great combination. So what does AQA religious studies look like? So it's divided into two papers. So there's a study of religion, which is 50%, which is done in year 10. So this is your first paper. So paper 1, and we do Christianity and we do Judaism. So there's two sections to each one. So there's Christian beliefs and Christian practices, and then Jewish beliefs and Jewish practices. And that would be 50% of your GCSE, 50% of your grade would come from that paper. 25% from Christianity and 25% from Judaism. The other 50% is thematic studies, and we study that in year 11, and it's essentially philosophy and ethics. And so within that, we start to look at big questions. So we do topics like religion and life, crime and punishment, the existence of God and revelation, religion, peace and conflict. So let's spend a little bit of time thinking about what we would look at if we were studying these things. So religions, the study of religion, Christianity and Judaism, which is 50% of the paper. We ask questions like, what's God's nature like? So for these religions, what is God's nature like? What does God look like? What is God like? And how does that then fit maybe with evil in the world, or how the world is seen and perceived? Within Christianity, we'll look at who is Jesus. Is Jesus the Son of God? Are we able to know whether Jesus is or isn't the Son of God? Are we able to verify beliefs within Christianity about Jesus? And what is Jesus's role? What happens after we die? Within both religions, we look at beliefs in the afterlife and what that looks like. What does it mean to be a Christian? What actions take place because of that? How do Christians live their everyday life? What festivals do they celebrate? How do Christians believe that their belief influences and impacts the way they live? Judaism being one of the first monotheistic religions. So we're going to look at why that is, what that looks like. How do Jews worship God? So how do they worship, and how does that differ from other religions such as Christianity? And what do Jews believe about Jesus? If we've spent time thinking, what do Christians think about Jesus? Is he the Son of God? Is he divine? We can then also spend time thinking, well, what do Jews believe about Jesus? Because after all, Jesus was a Jew. And so we can start to look at what that means. How does someone become a Jew? Judaism is one of the only religions that predominantly you are born into that religion, but there is conversion, and we can start to look at what that looks like. And how does being a Jew influence their actions? So in a similar way that we look at how does being a Christian, what does that mean? How does it influence their actions? We're able to look at how religious belief influences the individual. Then we've got themes, which is philosophy and ethics. And as I said, there's 4 themes that are studied. So religion and life, crime and punishment, existence of God and revelation, and then religion, peace and conflict. And these are going to ask big questions as well. So for example, in religion and life, we'll ask questions like, can religion and science work together on the creation of the universe? Or actually, are they completely separate? When we look at existence of God and revelation, we can start to ask questions like, can God's existence be proven by logic alone, or does it have to be proven by faith? When we look at things like crime and punishment, we're going to ask questions like, should the death penalty be allowed? And what are the arguments for and against that? And what do different religions say about that? And in religion, peace and conflict, we'll start to look at things like, when is it okay to go to war? And lots of religions do have ideas about this and sets of rules about this. And so we will look at different theories, like just war theory, for example, about when it might be okay to go to war, or actually whether we could argue these religions are pacifists and war is never okay. So where does religious studies GCSE lead? Well, it's cheesy, but I think it's true. Essentially anywhere. There's no real limits if you choose to study GCSE religious studies. It doesn't mean you have to do A-level, but you can. And I think that's also the great thing about GCSE religious studies. It complements a great amount of A-level subjects. And if you choose to do religious studies A-level from the GCSE, it's known to be a great academically rigorous A-level, which is valued by universities and supported by universities. If you choose to do the GCSE, it will set you in really good stead because it shows this kind of awareness of the world. And if you don't take it any further, you don't do it at A-level, it still shows that you have this awareness of the world and awareness of diversity and understanding in the world. And it's developing those critical thinking skills. So what does it mean? Are we able to disagree well? Are we able to critically look at the world? Which is at the heart of this subject and is vital to so many jobs. So I think that initial cheesy answer, where does religious studies lead? Anywhere. I think that is so true. I think religious studies is valuable to almost every job that I can think of and is a real asset to somebody. So if you have any questions, please do contact us. Your religion and worldviews current year 9 teacher would be more than happy to talk to you, but do feel free to contact me as well. My email address is on the screen and I'll be more than happy to chat to you any more about the subject. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and I really hope that you consider the subject, and if it's the right thing for you, we look forward to welcoming you in year 10.